Hi, I'm Zack with Coach House Motorhomes, and welcome to another exciting episode of Coach House's instructional videos. In this particular episode, we're going to go through how to winterize your coach. So why would you want to winterize your coach anyways? So though our coach is a four-season coach, if you leave it sitting in storage, for instance, and you're not in the actual living area of the coach, the interior of the unit is going to get down to those freezing temperatures, and you could have some problems with your plumbing. So that is why you want to winterize your coach. Anytime you're going to be storing your coach, you're not going to be inside of it. When you're leaving it in storage, and it's going to be reaching those freezing temperatures anywhere below 32 degrees. So that's kind of why we want to winterize the coach. Basically, if you've put it kind of in some more simpler terms, if you've got water left in any of the water lines or any of the plumbing throughout the coach, and that water was to freeze, water naturally will expand as it freezes. And if it's nice and tight in those plumbing lines and it starts to expand, it's going to cause those plumbing lines to break and crack. It could break your fittings. It could cause damage to your appliances. Whole lot of stuff that you don't want to have to deal with. So that's why we winterize our units. So the first step in winterizing, you want to go through and make sure you get all of the fresh water out of the unit. So let's go ahead and start with that. So now we're back on the driver's side of the unit. This is one of our D models, is how we refer to it in the shop, or a 261. It's built on a Ford E450 chassis. So once I go through all these different steps of the process, it's going to be specific to this unit or this floor plan. However, you'll notice there'll be a lot of similarities to all of the floor plans that we build here at Coach House. So back here on the driver's side, we're in the utility compartment. If you didn't see that other video, we kind of explain what a lot of this stuff does. So we're going to start out by first opening our low point drain down here. It's just a little petcock valve, and see how it spit just a little bit of water out. So that tells me we've got to go inside and turn on the water pump to continue pumping the water out. All right, so now we've came to the interior of the unit, and we're going to go ahead and just turn on our water pump button. And we can hear the water pump rumbling. You can hear it back there in the compartment. It's nice and quiet. It's not going to bother you when you're sleeping, but we can hear, so we definitely know that it's activated. So now we're going to go back outside and make sure that we're draining all of our fresh water out of the unit. And as you can see, everything's going according to plan. So now our 12-volt water pump that's on the interior of the unit is pumping all of the fresh water out of your fresh water tank. And it's going to do its best to try to get as much fresh water out of those plumbing lines as it possibly can. So we're going to let this run, and it shouldn't take more than just a few minutes. So one thing I do want to touch on, though, this, as you can see, obviously is going according to plan. But there's one other valve that could be in the mix, so I do want to make sure you all are aware of it. It's right on the interior of the unit. And basically, when you're going and pumping out your fresh water and you're at your utility area where this low point drain is, you'll be able to see it'll be somewhat in conjunction with right where this lines up if you're trying to figure out where this valve that I'm about to show you, where it might be located on your specific coach house. So now that we're back in the interior of the coach, we're right kind of in line with right where that petcock valve was, which is your low point drain on the exterior of the unit. So why I brought you in here is I don't want you to go and open that valve, go and turn on your water pump, and then you don't have any water coming out. And you're going, what the heck, Zach? I did exactly what was in your video. Well, there's one other valve that's in conjunction with all this, and it's located right here in the bottom of this closet on this particular unit. It's this big handled valve right here. So what this petcock specifically does, though, is it blocks off the line above here, above the floor level. So let me explain a little bit of why that's all necessary. So with our coach being a Four Seasons coach, what that really means is in any sort of weather or elements you could run into, the interior of this coach will still be livable. Well, that's by design with our plumbing as well. All of our plumbing is ran above floor here inside the coach. So as long as the interior of the coach is above 32 degrees freezing temperature, then all of your plumbing will be fine and you won't have to worry about any issues. But that drain that's running below the floor of the coach, that actually goes outside for that little bit of plumbing run. It goes outside and will be exposed to the elements and could potentially freeze. So that's why we have that redundant valve that's up here in the interior of the coach. So generally speaking, that valve will be left open, especially for us Floridians that are down here where we seldomly ever have to worry about freezing temperatures. We'll go ahead and leave that valve opened up so that you're getting full use of that petcock, and it's basically that one lower petcock that's below the floor is serving all of your low point drain purposes. Now, in most instances, that valve will be left open when you take delivery of your unit here from Coach House. Because we're here in Florida, we don't have to worry about freezing temperatures, and we want the coach to be ready to go for the customer as soon as they take delivery of it and be able to start using it right away. So I would say generally you don't have to really even worry about that valve. I just wanted to show it to you so that you know that it does exist. So if you do go turn on that silver petcock valve that's below the floor and you turn on your water pump and your water does not start discharging out of the coach, that is more than likely why. Or maybe your coach doesn't have any water in it. So while the water pump is running and continuing to run all the water out of the coach, the next step of what you want to do is bypass your water heater. So we're right back over here. We use a Truma water heater on all of our Coach House Platinums. So on this particular model, you are going to need a Phillips screwdriver in order to access the back side of the water heater. So we'll go ahead and just remove these little screw covers. They just press right onto the screw heads. You can remove them with a fingernail or even a little flat blade or a flathead screwdriver. I'm using my fingernail so that I don't nick up the cabinetry. Once you removed all the screw covers, just use your Phillips screwdriver to remove the 4 screws that hold the panel on. So now we've got access to the back side of our hot water heater. Okay, so all we're going to do here, we set it up so it's very user friendly. There's 2 ball valves that are connected to the back side of the plumbing on that water heater, and all we're going to do is turn those valves so that basically instead of the water running into the water heater, getting heated up and coming back out, instead it's going to run through the bypass hose, so the water will quite literally bypass the entire water heater system and keep from getting any antifreeze in it when we start putting antifreeze into the coach. So now our water heater is protected. When we start putting antifreeze into the water system of the coach and cycling it through, we don't have to worry about any of it getting stuck in the hot water heater. Okay, when you notice it starting to spit like that, you know that you're getting low on water. So we'll try to get the last little bit out. It's not absolutely necessary to get all of it out, but you want to try to get as much as you can. So now we're going to shut that valve, and then we're going to go back inside and turn off our water pump. All right, so now that we've bypassed the hot water heater and we've drained all of the water out of our coach through our low point water drain, now we're going to go inside of the Truma here. And you want to make sure you get all the water out of your Truma hot water heater, because there is going to be a little bit of water more than likely in this vessel that's going to have a potential of expanding if it was to freeze. So we'll check the pressure just to make sure we get any pressure out. That way it doesn't spit out at us. And then you're going to push up on this black lever, pull this down. You're going to pull this out, and it's going to go ahead and drain any water that's inside that hot water vessel. And we recommend, just as a good rule of thumb, when you pull this out, go ahead and just put it in the front cup holder up in the cab of the vehicle. That way you don't forget that you've got all this kind of disassembled. Once the majority of this drains out, it'll continue to drain even once you close the frame. You just go ahead and snap this back shut. Put our nice fancy protective cover back on. And then, like I said, go put this in your cup holder. That way you don't forget that you've got this all disassembled during your winterization process. So now that we've got all the water out of the unit, now we want to start adding our antifreeze. You're going to do that through your gravity fill. Here on this particular unit, it's on the passenger side of the unit. So we recommend you use a funnel for doing this so you don't get antifreeze all over the side of your coach. And good rule of thumb for our particular units and the capacity of our tanks and all is 3 gallons of antifreeze. So for video purposes, I'm just going to put 1 in so we don't, not quite so wasteful. But I do want you to see the entire process. Looks good to me. So now that we've got 1 gallon of antifreeze, but remember, a good rule of thumb is to put 3 gallons in on any of our coach house units. So we're going to go ahead and close this cap back up. Close our compartment back up. Now we're going to go back inside and turn the water pump back on so we can start flushing that antifreeze through the entire freshwater system. So now that we got all the water out of the unit, we've got our 1 gallon of antifreeze into the freshwater tank. We turned on the freshwater pump. Now you want to come back here to our city water fill valve. It's back here in the utility compartment. If you remember from some of our other videos, the purpose of this valve, if you're connected to city water hookup and you're getting ready to leave your camp area, you would go ahead and turn this valve and that city water will fill your fresh water tank. Well, this valve also serves another purpose too. If I was to turn it now that I don't have city water connected, what it basically will do, it'll allow the freshwater system, it'll continue to stay pressurized because I turned the freshwater pump on. But then by opening this valve up, it'll allow the entire system to cycle so that 1 gallon of antifreeze that we just put into the tank, it'll cycle it through all of the water lines. And we can hear it go. So we'll leave that run for just a few minutes so that way it pressurizes, it gets the antifreeze into all of the water lines. Once we leave it sit for maybe a minute or two, we're going to go inside and open up each of the faucets on both the hot and the cold setting, as well as the inside shower and the outside shower. And we want to turn all of them on to where you get just a little bit of pink coming out of the faucet itself, so that way you can see you're getting antifreeze and not just any residual water. Now that we've let the system run for a few minutes, we went ahead and turned that valve back. And like I said, we're coming in here to the interior of the unit, and we're going to turn on each of the faucets just till we get a little bit of pink. There we go. See how the water just went to that pink color? So now we want to make sure we do both the hot and the cold because it's two different feeds that go to this faucet. So turn it one way. We've got pink. Turn it back this way. We've got pink. So this faucet is now winterized. We're going to proceed to do that throughout the entire interior of the unit. A little bit of pink. And again, we only put 1 gallon in this unit, so it's going to be a lot more obvious when you put 3 gallons in it, but we used a very minimal amount of antifreeze because I didn't want to be wasteful. We got pink out of that one. So now we're going to go to the shower. You can see it's a little bit of pink. And again, with 3 gallons, it's going to be much more bright pink, but at least you see the concept. So now to finish off our winterization process, we're going to come to the outside shower, and you don't want to forget this because this is just as important as all the other ones. Pull the faucet out. We'll do the hot, a little bit of pink, and then we'll do the cold. And a little bit of pink. Cool. So now our outside shower is all winterized, and your entire unit is ready for those frigid temperatures.